to infinity and beyond.
Everybody, Roger and James here, Fun is Gaming, and in this episode we're going to be talking about some recent announcements of some game closures, and also just generally like what's going on, why are they closing, why do we have games closing down. So first off, Marvel Zoom Zoom is closing down on Halloween, and the international version, the Japanese version, is carrying on. Not a big surprise for me because they've not been updating it for about 3-4 months, which is never a good sign. They also announced, Disney have announced a number of games are being removed from the Windows Store on September the 25th, including Disney Crossy Road, Where's My Water 2, Inside Out Fort Bubbles, DuckTales Remastered, Frozen Freefall, Disney Dream Treats, and Maleficent Freefall, stating, although the decision was difficult to make, this will allow us to focus on building new and more engaging games. While it may still be playable, there are no plans for future updates. The app will be retired and active product support will no longer be provided after this date. Please note there will be no refunds or credits for virtual items in game currency or things that once the game has shut down. So that's kind of like the news on that one. So first off, like I say, Marvel Zoom Zoom, it wasn't a surprise that it shut down, but at the same time, I don't think it was doing what the Disney version was doing.
No, and you could probably argue that some of that is because it never really got much of a push from Disney. It did when it launched, but then even when they had events going on, you never really heard about it. How much of that is chicken before the egg kind of stuff? Like, was it not getting a push because it wasn't doing well, or was it not doing well because it wasn't getting a push? But yeah, I think anyone who's been paying attention to Marvel Zoom Zoom won't be too surprised. It's possibly disappointed, but I don't know. For myself, I stopped playing it ages and ages ago. It just got too grindy, very grindy.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be at all surprised if these characters end up being flipped over to the main game eventually, and like they did with Star Wars, because that was the odd thing. They put Star Wars in there. So having two identical games. Now, I would imagine that the general consensus was they were going after a different audience. Marvel and Disney audiences don't mix and don't and they probably thought the Marvel fans would have picked this up. Maybe primarily the Marvel fans on the app wasn't connecting with them. Maybe unlike Marvel's Contest of Champions, which is still one of the most highest rated games. Future Fight, all these different games. Zoom Zoom might have been wasn't connecting, and so therefore wasn't bringing any money in, and that's my gut feeling.
Yeah, and that's probably true. I think part of it, and this was at least for me anyway, was the distribution of characters was very weird. So you could get characters from their challenges, like Yondu would show up and you'd fight against Yondu, but the drop rate on the characters was just abysmal. Absolutely terrible. You'd have to play like 50 games to get one character. Or you could get the gacha boxes or spheres as they were in that one. And there were ones you could pay for with in-game currency, and those were kind of junk. Or there were ones that you could get with the premium currency, and those were better junk. But the premium currency, they'd only give out every once in a while. Otherwise, you were expected to buy it. So you really had this kind of like 3-tier character set, and it wasn't a very good distribution model. And I know for myself, I was like, I'm not spending money on this, and if you're not going to give me a way to get most of the characters, then I'm not wasting my time with this. I'd rather just go play the regular Zoom Zoom, except I don't want to play that because Line's a piece of junk, but that's a whole other fight.
Yeah. Now on the PC side, Disney announcing closure or removal from the Windows Store. Now, I almost look at this in a couple of different ways. First off, Windows Phones. Windows Phones, I did purchase one. I dropped it and smashed it, so I ended up having to buy an iPhone. But the problem is, Windows phones were kind of pushed as this next big thing. It completely just backfired, didn't work, it didn't catch on. I mean, I don't even see them anymore. It was a bit of a flash in the pan kind of thing. So,
I had a Windows. So I actually had two Windows phones. I replaced my first one with a second one when my contract rolled around, and I really, really liked the UI for it. I thought it was a very efficient user interface. I liked it a lot more than I like either the iPhone or the Android setup, but the app support was just not there at all. I don't know if it was hard to develop for, or if the developers just kind of took a wait and see, will there be enough people? And then because nobody was developing it for it, there were never enough people. Going back to chicken, egg, which happened first here. regardless, it never got the app support, and if you don't have app support in the mobile market, then no one's going to use your phone.
Yeah.
And so, as unfortunate as it is, it makes complete sense for Disney to pull out of this because they don't need to be wasting resources on 0.05% of the user base.
See, this is the thing, is I look at it very much like there's the Windows like phone era, which is kind of closing all that down. And then obviously you got the PC support, because I have actually got most of these games installed on my PC, but I never really played them, and they're not that kind of game where I would, you had this in your hand or you had your iPad. Playing them on the PC was generally not as, most of them touch games, and I don't know, again, PC audience, were they doing it? Are kids playing it? This whole thing I think Xbox are doing with this Microsoft of we play anywhere, if it's on PC, and it's on one hand, I think like these games is like I would really like them to be on. You kind of think, well, they should try and be on as many platforms as possible. If they can be played on a PC, put them on there. If it's
right.
If they can port it over and it works. But I think the trouble is all these updates they keep doing. They've not been updating these games for a while, and there's almost this kind of thing as well. Like you say, you've got to look at the end of at the numbers. We don't know what the numbers are. If it's only 1% or 2% of the audience, and it's costing you this much, and you're only getting this much back, it might not be financially viable. The fact that they've pulled so many says to me that they've basically just closed down basically the Windows. Because I don't even remember, bar Disney Magic Kingdoms, I don't remember any game launching on PC for a while.
Yeah, and even Disney Magic Kingdoms, it's the last one that gets updated whenever there's a content patch. I think there have been a couple of events, even maybe the Lion King event or maybe Beauty and the Beast, where it launched after the event started, which left them at a serious disadvantage. But I think that this one, there's two major reasons for it. First, the Windows Store was originally pitched as like a combination mobile app and regular store.
Yeah.
And going back to Windows 8, they designed the UI with the idea that we'd all be using touchscreens for everything and tablets were going to take over. And they haven't. People don't view tablets as their primary computer, despite what, the creators of Arrow want us to believe. Yeah. Or Felicity Smoke typing away on her Surface. Like, no, I think you need a little more firepower than that if you're going to be hacking whatever. So that never took off. And then, of course, if you're trying to sell, actual full games, you're competing with Steam and Good Old Games and Green Man Games and all this stuff. And it's like, one way or another, you're not going to beat Steam in the current environment. And it's a valiant effort to try and go up against them. But you got to manage expectations.
I always struggled with that Windows Store because... first off, you had the Windows Phone stuff, and then you had your PC stuff, and then they started throwing in on all your Xbox games, and they're so desperate to make it all one unit, but it looked so clunky, and you were like, oh look, oh no, I can't play it on this device, oh no, I'm on the wrong, and I think that was for me as even as an Xbox player. And it's the kind of thing of I have a PC, I've had a Windows Phone, and I've got an Xbox, so I do use the store, but I can feel like it's so clunky. It's like I just leave the Xbox in one section. This whole we play anywhere thing that they're trying as well. It's like you are trying one thing, but you're sending off the wrong messages. But I can't help but look at this and kind of go, what were the numbers? Is that why they're closing it down? It does, however, bring up the subject of are Disney very... I mean, it does feel like, for me, like the amount of like game closures comes up more than game opening, and we've got a big update coming to iPhone soon, where any game that hasn't been updated for the new 64-bit systems are going to be removed from the App Store unless they've had an update. And I am expecting a flood. I mean, the list of like retired app games is getting bigger and bigger on there. So I think there's going to be a massive wave of old games that are going to get... Because it was odd, because some of the games that they were saying, like Inside Out, only got an update on the iPhone like 2 days ago. They're still getting updates as long as they are bringing in money, and I think that's the key point.
Yeah, and I mean the Windows Store, we don't know the numbers, as you keep saying,
No.
but I can't imagine that it's bringing in enough money for them to send developer resources for it, because it's not free to push an update. It's not free for them to allocate people to make sure that it's working on all the different Windows phones, all the different Windows tablets that may or may not be able to run it. And that's time they could be working on iOS or Android devices, and at a certain point, it just makes more sense to just say, nope, we can't do this, and we love our Windows users, we love our Windows Phone users, but sorry.
Well, I mean, it's a bit like this situation. I mean, in some ways, I always feel like the Amazon apps are in that same situation of, some of the games get transferred over there. And like from my point of view, if when I was looking at a tablet, yeah, Amazon might be sitting there going they're a quarter of the price of an Apple one, but most of the games don't get updated, especially from the Disney side of view. They take months if they ever come out there. This whole thing, I think, the idea of porting everything to every system, which is in an ideal world, brand new, we've got Disney Zoom Zoom Land coming soon. Ideally, yeah, it's like put it on the iPhone, put it on the iPad, put it on Android, put it on PC, put it on Steam, put it on Switch, put it on Xbox. In an ideal world, that's what I think we would all love, just to have the one game ported onto every device. Cloud service between everything, so you can play on whatever device you want. And that, in an ideal world, I think we probably will get there as we move more onto cloud services. But right now, it can't happen.
Well, it's kind of funny because it sounds like at least fans want Destiny 2 to be like the herald of that, because there's all sorts of petitions going on to be like, we want one save for our characters. So if I play a character on my Xbox One and then I decide to pick up the PC version, I'm using the same character. Will it happen? I don't know, but it would be great if it didn't. It would be great if other games did that too.
But it's such an odd thing, because I think the trouble is with these game closures is, I know specifically in our echo chamber, we tend to get, whenever anything like this is a kind of a constant thing of, Disney shutting something else down, Disney shutting something. The trouble is, I think in some ways, they've been throwing so much stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And unfortunately, stuff is dropping off the wall, and some of it's sticking. And unfortunately, I think more is dropping off the wall because, in essence, and I would say Marvel and Star Wars are both, Marvel have been just as bad. We know of at least 3 games, mobile games, that have closed down. It's a topic for another thing that we were going to discuss, which your guys will see in a couple of weeks. But it's certainly interesting to see what's going on with all these apps.
Yeah, and also if you kind of do a little reading between the lines, it sounds like, or it seems like, a lot of the other apps, the ones that haven't been announced for closure yet, at least the ones that I've been playing, it feels like there is pressure on the developers to kind of increase monetization on them. Disney Magic Kingdoms, we've talked about plenty. It definitely seems like if they're going to up the event cycle, if they're going to increase the number of the different ways to get premium characters, like the Toy Story alien is basically a hidden premium character, it feels like they're being told increase, the profits. I've also been playing Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and the recent territory battles were released, and oh yeah, oops, by the way, the requirements that we told you about that you have to spend money on are actually much higher, so spend more money. They backed off on that, but it definitely feels a lot like we're pushing to see just how much we can get away with before customers get back. And now I haven't played other games, but Avengers Academy has been doing this for months. Contest of Champions has been doing this for months, and it just feels like Disney is saying, you need to prove that you belong in the App Store, or we're going to drop you and replace you with the new hot thing.
I do feel I just feel as a general whole that there is a fundamental issue of expectations for free to play, and unfortunately, and I say this quite a bit, but putting money into mobile games and online services, you are not investing in product. When I buy this, I have this. This is going nowhere. This is, if the servers go down, this can be playable. This is an old era. This is an era that You know, when you bought your game, you got it for life until the cartridge broke. And generally, you know, here we are 30 years later, and I can still play this game right now and plug it in. We're in a different era now. And unfortunately, my biggest worry generally is, and obviously from a like Disney, there's no preservation. There's no, you know, all these gamers are working on stuff, and it's all just being turned off, switched off, and all their work, and all the, you know, you can't even, if I want to go back and play a mobile game that I loved from 2-3 years ago that's closed down, I can't. And it is a worrying thing in terms of, you know, it is just being treated just like a daily newspaper. And that's kind of, in some ways, a little bit worrying for some games. But yeah, generally, I would certainly say treat all mobile games and PC games or digital services as consumables. You know, you have a cup of coffee, you have a packet. You know, if you want that new character, this is not. The trouble is, they're pushing it on one side. They've collect all this stuff, buy all these characters, get all this, build up your collection, have this amazing value, and you're more valuable. And then they go and wipe it all out, and it doesn't. It does send a. There's like a cross messages coming through of this thing of collect all this stuff because you want to spend all this money. Oh, by the way, we're closing it all, and all your money now is just ours, and you can't be bothered with it. You know, that is gonna. You know, you get burnt a few times. It's gonna kind of have that effect on you, and I feel like we're in a new era of games, and you know all these closures and stuff. A lot of them as well are the industry adapting and changing. You know, and it's an odd one.
Yeah, and I mean you could argue possibly that there is something of a bubble going on right now where all these games are asking for crazy amounts of money. I mean. Going back to Galaxy of Heroes, one of the packs you could buy was $60, $59.99 for 55 character shards for 2 different characters. That's not even enough to rank them up to a higher level. That's you get almost no value out of that. Now you got some other items in it too, which I haven't crunched any of the numbers or whatever, but the people that I talked to were like, "Oh yeah, that's a great value for that." And I'm like. That's you spend your $60 on that, and I'll spend my $60 on Battlefront 2. We'll see how this one works out for you.
But no, it's definitely interesting to see what's going on, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to be continuously because I'm sure there's going to be a second wave of Windows stuff coming up in the future. But I'd love to know what you guys think at home. You know, have you been burned? Are you upset? Do you buy any stuff? Things like this. You know, we'd love to know your thoughts on this. As per usual, you can hit that subscribe button, follow button, or like button, depending on which platform you're watching or listening this on. James, where can they find you?
Find me heroiclegacy.com.
And as per usual, check us out over at thisgames.com, and I will see you guys soon. Laters.
Later.